Welcome to the Android workshop. Okay, so today we'll be talking about Kotlin as a programming language, getting an introduction to Android Studio, and then building a mini app, a dice roller app. So these are the main learning objectives. For the Kotlin exercises, we'll be going through an online IDE and some practice problems, and that will mostly be independent. And then we'll move on to the Android Studio app. And I think if you haven't already, please download Android Studio. I'll send a link in the chat. So yeah, you should probably have some prior programming experience. Doesn't have to be extensive, but just to get you started, you should be familiar with, say, like what a function is, you know, how to write print statements, just like very basic understanding. And then internet connection, computer, Android Studio. I'm assuming you all have that if you're in this Zoom meeting. So first, I think let's just download Android Studio. I'll paste the link in the chat. So as we go through the slides, it can download in the background. And yeah. So I've sent the link in the chat. And feel free to turn on your cameras or unmute yourself if you have any questions, anything like that. Okay, so yeah, if you can download Android Studio, that'd be great, because that would save us a lot of time later. So also, if everyone in chat can maybe type like what your favorite programming language is and why quickly, just to see what everyone is comfortable with. Okay, C#, Python. Yeah, I really like Python, Java as well. Okay, cool. So today's breakdown is going to look like this. So we're going to do a brief introduction, which is happening right now from 6 to 6:15. Then we'll move on to the Kotlin commands, which are like some Kotlin exercises to get you familiar with the language. And then we'll move into the dice roller app in Android Studio, and then I'll share some resources with you guys so that you can work on it yourselves and kind of develop the app further. Okay, so what is Kotlin? Has anyone worked with it before or is familiar at all? No? Okay. So Kotlin is a modern programming language that's used in Android Studio. It was developed by JetBrains in 2010, and it's one of the main languages for Android development along with Java. And some benefits of Kotlin is that it's expressive and concise. It reduces the amount of boilerplate code you need in your project. It's also really great for safe code that helps like minimize errors, like null pointer exceptions, for instance. And then it's interoperable with Java or something. Okay. And then it's interoperable with Java, so you can call Java-based functions in Kotlin and vice versa. And it's also it also has structured concurrency, so that kind of simplifies background task management for like network calls, accessing local data, etc. for mobile apps. All right. So how does Android development relate to Kotlin? So Kotlin is an officially supported language for Android development, like along with Java, and has tons of libraries and documentation. So it's really great for beginners as well. And it's been like rapidly adopted by like a bunch of companies, and it's like growing. So it's a great thing to learn. So very kind of rudimentary piece of code here. So does anyone want to guess or type in the chat what this function does? Pretty standard. No? Okay, yeah. Prints hello world. Yeah, doesn't get easier than that. So you can see here, like the functions are declared using fun, which is kind of fun. Fun main, and then you have the curly braces, and then print ln. So it's kind of similar to, it's kind of like a fun mix of Python and Java in a way. So yeah, it prints hello world. So is there anything you notice about Kotlin as far as like syntax? Yeah, curly braces, I hate them too. They're so easy to forget. So like I said, it uses fun to declare functions. Kotlin programs usually need a main method. And then it also uses curly braces to enclose the body of the function. So unlike Java, this Kotlin does not need semicolons after every single line. So that's good. And it uses println to like print statements. So yeah, so we can move on to other examples. So parameters and return types. So for parameters, you can, as you can see here, you have to declare a variable followed by a colon and then the data type. So for instance, like A colon, and then the data type is integer, and then B colon, and then the data type is also integer. And then for the return type, you do another colon, and then the int is the return data type. So int plus int returns an int. So that's kind of like the basic syntax for parameters and return type. If there isn't a return value, you can specify unit as the return type, or you can just leave it like blank. That also works. Yeah, it's very readable. Like I really like it because it's like a mix of Python and Java, a little like more complicated than Python, but less annoying than Java. Okay. So this is another example. So this function doesn't have any parameters, and there's no specific return type, so we just use unit and then println welcome. So let's talk about variables. You can declare variables using the var keyword for mutable variables, or a val keyword for immutable variables. So if you use var, you can change the value it's assigned to. Just kind of like a counter variable that can be updated. But if you use val, you only need to assign the variable once. And you don't really expect to change its name because it's immutable. And then it's also recommended to use val over var when possible if you don't want to change the variable. So that's basics. So what's interesting about these variable declarations? So we have var length equals 5 or val message equals welcome. So these are the two ways we talked about declaring variables, but we can see here that no data type is specified. So in the parameter, yeah, exactly. So no data type is specified. You don't have to say string or integer when you're declaring a variable. And Kotlin supports this, so you can omit your data type whenever you want. And it just kind of infers the data type based on what the assigned value is. So it also like makes the code more concise and it's just easier. So here's another example with an if statement. So pretty simple syntax, if, else, else. And you can like use curly braces to kind of separate the statements. So yeah, it's really fun to learn. It's a great skill to have. So here you can write if else statements, and if the condition in the parentheses is true, then the branch will be executed. If not, then it'll move on to the else if. And if that's not true, then it'll move on to the else. And you can also use the when keyword for conditionals. So you can do like when x is equal to 0, or like when score is less than 20 or something like that. So that's also another way to do like if else statements. You can also like do like the standard stuff, so like for loops, while loops, all that can be done as well. So here we have another function class. This is class square with a val, side, and then end. So here we're specifying the data type again in the parameter, and then assigning it, and then calling the function here with square 10. So Kotlin supports like object-oriented programming. So you can like make classes, and then, you know, like all the basic principles of object-oriented programming apply here, like classes, inheritance, polymorphism, all of that. So you can define a class square. It has a single parameter, which is the length of the side, which has the data type of an integer, and then you can instantiate it as a val or a var, but we're doing a val here, and then you can print it. So the answer should be 10. So here we also have some other kind of built-in functions. So we have list stuff. You can make this into an array. So 1, 2, 3. You can create a set, and you can also map. So like a dictionary. So you can use these built-in functions, which makes life really easy. So a couple of logistics about what we're going to do next is we're going to go to Kotlin Cohen's. I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but whatever. So we're going to go through a couple of interactive exercises to help you get familiar with the language and like the syntax, and practice a couple of problems. So you'll work on the first three categories, so the introduction, conventions, and then collections. And so we'll walk through the first three, and then you should be like comfortable enough to move into the app and then kind of like work on it after this session as well. So when you click on a category, so like introduction, you click on hello world, it'll give you like a function, and then you'll have to do what they like tell you to do on the right hand side. So here the function should return a string okay. So starting off simple, and then you can press the little play button here to see the result. So it's just like a virtual kind of IDE to play around with Kotlin. And then there's also a Kotlin playground. So if you click on the button, like should be somewhere here. But if you click on Kotlin playground, it'll bring you like here, and then you can run like write functions and then run the program like apart from the exercises. So if you wanna like write some method, you can play around with here. So let's get started. I'll paste the link in the chat. Okay. So if you click on the link, you can create a profile if you want. You don't have to, but if you do, they'll give you like badges. And then you want to go on the prior programming experience track, and then click on Start Kotlin Koans. And then you can get started. And then if you have any like questions or you need help, they also like give, I think there are like hints available, but if not, like you can always come to the main room. Okay, so let's get started. So I'll just like show you what it looks like. So you go here, and you can do start now. Hello world. So you want the function to return okay. It's pretty simple. You just do okay, run it, pass. And then here you have the function join options that returns the list in a JSON format by specifying only 2 arguments. And the default unnamed arguments help to minimize the number of overloads and improve the readability of the function invocation. The library function join to string is declared with default values for parameters. So these are the default values. We have a prefix and a postfix, and it can be called a collection of strings. So you can do, so we have 2 arguments. We can do prefix and then postfix. And that passed. You can also like do show answer if you're having like trouble with something. And then yeah. So let's do that. And then okay, so it's 6:26 right now. So let's work on this till 6:50. And then we'll come back together and then move on to Android Studio. And if you haven't already, please download it while you're doing the exercises so we can jump right into it. Sound good? Okay. How's everyone doing? You can type something in the chat or do a reaction or something. Okay, let's give it 5 more minutes and then let's come back together. Yes, it is being recorded. Good luck with your preset. Okay, let's come back together and move on to the second half of the workshop. So how did everyone feel about the Kotlin exercises? Are you feeling confident? Or was it challenging? Yeah, some of the exercises were challenging. But it's about like problem solving, right? So do you guys feel like we can jump into the Android workshop part, or would you like to go over some of the exercises? Or has everyone has everyone been able to download Android Studio? Okay, cool. Okay, so I think we can move on to the second part. So today we're going to build the dice roller app. So essentially what it will be about is when you click on the roll button, it's gonna roll a number randomly from 1 to 6. And this should give you an idea of how to create a project in Android Studio, how to write functions, how to create layouts, and then you can play around with it on your own time later. So first, let's talk about Android Studio. So Android Studio is the official tool for Android development and Android apps. There's a lot of functionality available, including like templates, built-in functions, a lot of UI components that you can use to create apps. So it's a very multifaceted tool that's really helpful. So after you install Android Studio on your computer, you can also use an Android emulator, which is a virtual device to test your apps. So you can create a project and then use an emulator to see how it looks. You don't have to connect your phone to it. So that's really helpful because you can make it responsive to different screen sizes as well. So today we'll be building an interactive rice tiller app to learn about layouts. And there are different types of layouts and views and view groups in Android Studio. So we'll learn about those. So some of the views we're going to use are text view and image view. Probably won't be able to get to the image view part today, but we will get into the text view and the buttons. And then, yeah, we can create different layouts. So linear layout, text view, and button, and then constraint layouts as well. So constraint layouts are for more complex layouts. So you can kind of use view groups and just a bunch of different elements within the constraint layout, but linear layouts are simpler for beginners. So we'll kind of start off with those because those are just to display like a row or columns of things. So it's an easier start. So you can declare layouts in Android Studio using XML files. So I believe XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. So it's kind of similar to HTML in a way. So HTML is hypertext markup language. So the syntax is very similar to that. So we can see here we have a text view, Android : text equals hello world, which is a string. So we can declare variables like this. And it's like pretty intuitive. Once you get into it, it's really similar to HTML. So if you have experience with that, this will come pretty easy. And then there are different kind of layout options. So you can use wrap content to see kind of how the content is displayed within the emulator. So you can match it to the parent, which is kind of, like the screen. So it could be like a tablet or a phone or whatever. Or you can kind of like use different options. So there's like a bunch of different ways to do the layout and add constraints on where you want something to appear on the screen. So some basics of an Android project are you're probably going to make a main activity. So that's going to be your main like app file. So that's going to be a Kotlin file, and then you'll have kind of resources or layout files, which are the XML files, images, strings, themes, etc. if you want to add those. And then you have an Android manifest.xml file as well. And then Gradle files, which are mostly like for adding dependencies or any kind of imports into the project if you're using something. And then the Android manifest.xml file kind of describes information about your app, like the app's package name, components of the app, permissions, etc. So some logistics. So go to the this link. I'll put it in the chat again. So this is just the link I sent earlier. But if you go here, and then you go to Android Fundamentals course, and then click Start Course. And then you want to go to, there are a bunch of units. You want to go on Unit 1, and then you want to choose Pathway 1. And this is just going to give you, this is going to take you to the code lab for this workshop, which is a step-by-step guide to creating the app I just talked about. So when you click into the pathway, it'll kind of look like this, with like a bunch of ordered activities to learn a specific skill. And then you'll also have a chance to earn a badge at the end. So yeah, let's get started. You can go here. I'll actually send a specific link for the pathway itself, so you don't have to click through things to navigate to it. Yeah, so if you click on the link I just sent, it should take you to the pathway. Okay, so I guess we have like two options here. I can like go through the Android workshop, like share my screen and then go through like with you guys, or you could work on it on your own. Is there like, would you like me to share my screen and go through it with you, or would you prefer to work on it independently? So if you can just like, maybe like put it in the chat, or, okay, together, cool. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm just gonna share my screen again. One second, I'm trying to share my entire desktop. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, cool. So this is the project. So we'll work through this together. Okay, so app overview. So in this collab, we'll create a new project called Dice Roller, which will add basic interactivity with a button. And each time a button is clicked, the value of the text changes. So if we click on roll, it should give us a random number that is generated. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so first what we want to do is we want to create a new project. So I'm just gonna make a new project with an empty activity. And I'll call this Dice Roller App. And then we want to use Android 19 for KitKat, because that's the version that this code lab uses. Finish. Okay. Okay, cool. So if you go here, on top right here, and we click on Android, we can see all the files that we have kind of as boilerplate code for this. So we have, like we talked about, an Android manifest.xml file that gives us information about our app. We have a main activity with a bunch of imports and kind of just like a boilerplate template. So we have an onCreate method, a set content view that references activity_main, which is our XML file, this one. So here we have our basic XML file. And if we click on split, we can see kind of what it looks like. So right now it says, hello world, that's it. So that's kind of the basic layout. So if we go to the main activity.kt, which is our main file, so this is going to be like our app.py, if you're familiar with that in Python and Flask. So here we have an onCreate method. The onCreate method. So activities don't use constructors. So instead they initialize, they have predefined methods like onCreate, and then you can override them with your own methods in the app. So we have the set content view, which displays our activity_main.xml file. And this is just the layout. Okay, so this is kind of the basic layout. So here we have, again, like we talked about, the text view. And here, like the kind of boilerplate is constraint layout, but we will be using linear layout because we just need a row. And this is like much more complicated than we need it to be. Okay, So let's go back here and copy this. Right here. So we can see here, if we save this, our text has moved to the top. So we have hello world and it has moved to the top. And that's because we changed the constraints. So right now it's wrap. So the layout width is wrap content, and then the layout height is also wrap content. And you can also play around with it. You can use so as I do that, you can see that the code changes as well. So because I like stretched it out, the code is changing. So you can do it both ways. So you can like do it, like make changes on the layout itself, or you can write code. But I found that like actually writing is better than just like making changes on the design itself. So I'm just going to change this back to how it was. So wrap content and then match. I believe these are both wrap content. Yep. So wrap content. Okay, cool. So now what we want to do is we want to add a button. So we'll go here. And then I would encourage everyone to go through this on your own as well, just to get a sense of how to do this in practice and kind of read all the details as well. I'm kind of going through it really fast because we don't have a lot of time, but I would encourage everyone to kind of read it as well. So we can add a button element to our layout as well. So let's see, we can add this. We can add it right below our text view. We can make this wrap content. And this is better than kind of like giving it numbers, like we saw earlier, like when we were changing the size, because this makes it responsive to different screen sizes. So like this would be good for like a tablet or a smartphone, and you don't have to worry about the responsiveness of the design. And then let's add text here as well. Roll. So this is our roll button. So we can see it here. But now we want to kind of center it and move it down instead of in the header. Another thing is you can also display the system UI, I believe here. Yeah. So you can view the system UI. So here we have the name of our app on top. So this is what it would look like on a smartphone. And then we have hello world in our button right here. Okay, so it's usually not, a good idea to just kind of hard code the name. So what we want to do is we want to create a variable for this. So like a reference. So we want to go into our strings.xml file. And then what we want to do is this. So we want to add the name of the app and then the name of the button to our strings.xml file, and then we can use this name identifier in our main activity XML file to reference them. And then that way, if you have to change the names, we can simply go to our strings.xml file instead of going through our activity_main.xml file and changing it, because that would probably get really long if we keep on adding elements to it. So this is just easier. So we have app name, and then if you go back to our activities.xml, we can change this to this, the role_label. And then we want to do the same thing for the, I guess we can keep this as hello world. And then what we want to do is we want to create another orientation. So we want the orientation to be vertical. So we can add that attribute in our linear layout here. So this is kind of really similar to, it's kind of like a mix of CSS and HTML, but you're doing both of the things in the same file. So we want to add the orientation. We can make this vertical. And then for our text, here we also want to make it center horizontal. And for this, you can check out like documentation for what you want to achieve. Like I don't know every single layout that there is out there for Android Studio, but you can check out documentation and see what you want to accomplish, and we can use that for that. So this is center horizontal. And then for our button, we want to do the same thing. So we want the layout to be center horizontal. Okay, so if you look at our screen right here, we can see that we moved the text and the button to the center. And now we want to shift it downward to make it centered on the screen. So what we can do that by adding this to our linear layout. So right now we only have the center orientation as vertical, but we want the layout gravity to be center vertical. So we can add that to our linear layout here, and then that should move it down like so. Okay, so we have hello world, and we have our button that says roll, but this is kind of just the front end, right? None of this is actually functional. If we click on this button, nothing's going to happen. So we need a way to link this XML file that we have to our main activity Kotlin file right here. So one way to do that, or like I guess the main way to do that, is to use IDs. So what we want to do here is, let's actually change the text size really quickly as well. Okay, so we want to use this Android ID here for our button, and then also for our text. So here we've assigned it an ID of role_button, and then we'll do something similar for the text view. And you can call this What do they call it? Let's see. Role underscore label. And what this will allow us to do is we can use this built-in function called find view by ID. So the view is the activity, the XML file, right? So we can use view find view by ID and then just use the ID we defined right here to access this text view or this button in our main file. So now what we want to do is we want to go back to our main activity. And then we want to create the value, the button variable. So like kind of like how we practice, we can use val row button. Then this is button equals find. And then we can see that this isn't defined here. So this is something that Android Studio does. So you have to do button. And you can see it imported it right at the top. Find view by ID, r.id.row. Okay. So now that we have that, what we can do is, so yeah, here, like it says here again, the Android.widget.button. So if you, well, one thing that Android Studio does is if you like type something, it kind of auto completes it and then also imports it for you, which is really nice. So that's one thing I like. And you can use Alt Enter to do the import. Okay, so now we also want to make another function in our main activity called roll dice. So this is going to be a private function, and this is basically when we click our button, this is going to add the functionality to the button. So what we can do here is we can use toast dot make text, and then you can add a context. So the toast function takes a context and a message. So we're going to add this button clicked. And we're just using this to see if our button is functional. So this is just going to give us a notification that the button has been clicked. So, okay. So we can see if this works on our emulator. And then you can see here, because we aren't calling roll button anywhere, it's like gray. So we probably also want to do like a listener for this. So roll button dot set on click listener curly braces, and then we want to call our roll dice function like so. So this is what we just did with the on-click listener. So it should look something like this. And now I'm just going to build the project. So I'm going to sync with the Gradle files right here. So all the things we imported here can go into there. And then to run, you can do make project. You can see here that the Gradle build is running at the bottom. So I'm just going to give it a few minutes. Okay. And then to run it, we can do run app. And then we can use the emulator on top right here. Can you see it? So if we click here, it'll run the emulator. So this is our emulator right here. And this is our dice roller app, hello world, roll. If you click on the button, it says button clicked. And that was the message we added with the toast, right? So it just gives us a notification and it disappears pretty quickly after because of this, because we added the length underscore short. So we don't really need this in our app, but we just added this to make sure that the click functionality was working. So now we can actually move on to creating a dice, right? So making it actually run. So for that, we need the random number generator. So what we can do here is we also want to be able to change the text. So currently it says hello world, but once the dice is rolled, we want to change the text as well so that it says dice rolled. And then we want to display a random number. So here we can use the function or the method dot random. So this is built in. And then we can give it 1 through 6. And it's going to generate a random number between them. And then we can run our app, and that should work. So yeah, let's change the text to dice rolled, and then let's also add the random int to our app now. Okay, so what we want to do now is right now in our roll dice function, we have this. We can kind of comment this out for now. Let's see, so we want the value result text, or not value, like our variable result text, and this is a text view. And then we can do find view by ID, r.id dot result underscore text. And that's what we called it, right? And it's giving us an error. Why is that? Oh, I see, we didn't call it result underscore text. So we want to change this. Instead of roll label, we want to call it result underscore text. Save it. Okay, that works. And then we want to do result text dot text is equal to dice rolled. So we're making a variable here, and then we're assigning it this string, so dice roll. So once it's clicked, so once we click the button, the text is going to change to this. So that's what we're doing here. And then we also want the number. We want the number to change when we click the button. So we'll do another variable, call it random int. And then we can use the built-in random number generator function .random. And then we want to also display this. So we can do result text .text is equal to random int. So that's our variable right here, to string. So we want to display it as a string. We can uncomment this as well, just to see. And now we want to restart our app. So we can do apply changes and restart activity. So the Gradle build is running on the bottom. So once it finishes, we can look at our emulator again. Uh-oh, we have an error. Changes were not applied. Okay, let's reinstall and restart. Okay, that worked. So let's go and see. Okay, so here, if we click on roll, generates, can you see it? So here, if we click on roll, it generates a random number. And then we also have like the button clicked. Like so. And then actually we can get rid of the button clicked. We don't need this. And then let's also restart our activity again to see how that looks. So here we have hello world, we have roll on the bottom, we click the button, and it gives us a number. So that's our dice roller app. Pretty cool. And then the next part for this, and you can also access the solution code right here. So if you want to take a look at it, you can do that. But the next part of this lab is adding an image to the dice. So we can actually kind of add like a visual aspect to the app. And I would encourage everyone to follow this code lab as well. This is the URL. You can just do next code lab and it should take you to the next kind of tutorial and work through it. They give a lot of like very detailed information and description and kind of what each method does. So it's a great learning tool, and they have a bunch more exercises as well that you can do to build your skills and create projects. So yeah, that was it for this workshop where, yeah, we finished right on time, 7:30. Thank you everyone for joining. And yeah, I think, yeah. So just to share some more resources with you guys, we have the official Android developer site, some sample kind of apps on GitHub, blogs for technical articles, other tutorials, YouTube channels, Kotlin vocabulary series, and then also the Kotlin Koans. So you have all these resources at your disposal, and I would encourage everyone to check them out. And yeah, that's it for this workshop. Thank you for joining.